Welcome to Brandon Hall Group's Excellence at Work podcast. You will hear from industry leaders covering innovative, cutting-edge business, learning, and HR topics that weave current market research and technology into each episode. Our Excellence at Work podcast is hosted by Brandon Hall Group's Chief Operating Officer and Principal HCM Analyst, Rachel Cooke.
Hi, and welcome to our podcast, Excellence at Work with Schoox. I'm Rachel Cooke, the CEO and our host of our podcast. I'm excited to have with me today the CEO, Lefteris, Ntouanoglou. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Rachel. Thanks for hosting me.
Thank you for joining me all the way from Greece. And I know we have a little bit of a time difference, and that's what makes technology so great nowadays. We can be on two different continents, two different time zones, and it almost feels like we're together having coffee or your drink of choice. But I'm looking forward to our conversation. We're going to be talking about learning and coaching and some interesting updates that you have going on at Schoox. Also want to congratulate you for receiving 2 gold awards from Brandon Hall Group Excellence, HCM Excellence Awards Program. You received one for Best Certification and one for Best Advance in Custom Content. So congratulations there. And I would love to share with our viewers a little bit more about some of those details of your programs and the great work that you do with your partners and clients. And for those of you that are familiar or not as familiar with Schoox, Schoox is a workplace learning software where they put people first, and they work with companies such as Subway, Celebrity Cruises, Phillips 66, and Sonesta Hotels, and many more. Lefteris founded Schoox to disrupt the learning and talent development market by creating a mobile-first solution, but with the learner in mind. And as president and CEO, he has steadily grown the company while overseeing the development of Schoox innovations. And so it sounds like you've had you've been busy. And I think I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background, and if you could share, how did you get started? Why did you start Schoox? How did you end up in the learning space? You've also received a PhD in diffractive optics. You studied computer and electrical engineering. So you have a technical background and also a business mindset, and it's an interesting combination as well. So why don't you go ahead and share with us a little bit about your background?
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much. Yes, it's an interesting combination. I'm a computer and electrical engineer. My PhD is in computer-generated holography, the broader term of diffractive optics, and I have an MBA. I joined early on a small startup company in Greece that was developing software in the HCM space. So we were developing core HCM products like HRIS, payroll, benefits. And so that company was growing very fast. And at some point, I was looking for ways to onboard our people from a knowledge perspective in a better way, to allow for faster knowledge acquisition, to allow better and enable knowledge sharing within the organization. A typical startup company is usually not that very well structured, doesn't have a lot of processes, so a lot of knowledge is in everyone's head. And so I was looking for ways to really help people lift their knowledge and improve their skills. So it was around 2010, so 23 years ago, where the LMS systems had already shown up in the market and were quite successful. So I tried on several of those, trying to introduce those within the organization, but they were not very well received. And I myself wasn't really very happy either with those products. I think we tried on a couple really well-known back then commercial products and on a couple open source products, but it wasn't really, it was anything else but a success. So it was the first time where I got exposed to those systems, and then we let that project just go away. But it was always in my mind. I was struggling. What was the problem with those products? And most of the times, founders have a personal experience which they then try to address through some new, more innovative or better products. And so I started, putting on paper what later on I wanted to become a dream learning solution. Of course, the more I digged into that field and the more I investigated those products, I started realizing what the problem most likely was. And I also realized that it became early on one of the most hated products out there. I mean, enterprise software products, because it never met, the expectations of the market, and they never worked as they should, in short. But the problem apparently was, even if you look at the name LMS stands for Learning Management System, which was, in reality, those products were built to support an organization to manage the learning process rather than helping people learn. That's a fundamental difference, and it's a big difference. So if you really want to build a product that helps people learn, you have to build a completely different product. That was my belief, because you needed to build a product that would mimic the way we learn in real life. And in real life, we don't really learn just by going on a seminar or watching a video, for example, or going through, which is a similar learning activity than going through a score file, which was back then the dominating type of content for online learning. But we learn also on the job. We're learning by sharing experience with our peers. We're learning by leveraging collective knowledge. We learn by just reading snippets or curating content. So there are a lot of different activities that lead to knowledge acquisition, because at the end of the day, learning is the process that should lead to knowledge acquisition. And we started building such kind of a product, Schoox, and at the same time, I realized that even though it's an enterprise application, it was one of the few, if not the only product that was supposed to be used by all employees, by the entire population of an organization. So in reality, it was a consumer product. And therefore, it had to be designed with a different user experience and more as a consumer product living in an enterprise organization rather than an typical enterprise software, which is rarely used by all employees. And if at all, then just a few times a year, updating their data. And so this is how we actually started building Schoox. And of course, at the back end of my mind, at least, it was always not only to build a very different learning solution, but also to connect learning with development.
And when you say it's built for the consumer, are you referring to the consumer, the partners, or the ecosystem, including the employees of an organization, but also their external partners and clients? Is that how you define consumer?
I define consumer mostly around the principle that within an organization, with all the stakeholders, the employees, the extended enterprise, which can be and everyone who's an extension of your organization, like the franchisees, your partners, your customers, but those are all the different stakeholders that should access that system. But the difference of such kind of a system, it's not just which stakeholders should have access to the system, but from all of those stakeholders, the entire population, you have the expectation that all employees would have access and use the system on a daily basis. Whereas if you look at a payroll application, employees never have access to the system. Even if you go to a more modern HRIS system, and employees are given access to that application, it's mostly in order to update their personal data, and not to do anything different and significant.
Sure. So you're looking at it from also the instructors, the managers, the content developers, the actual learners as well, and then that ecosystem. So
Yes,
you have
exactly.
and from the needs of a manager versus an instructional designer and a learner can all be very different. So,
Exactly.
and as technology changes, we see the need to integrate learning with talent even now more so than ever, because you just can't create content or expect your employees to participate in these learning programs if there's not a purpose, or if it's not meaningful, if there's not a direct connection. So can you elaborate a little bit more on the benefits of how you see your clients um, utilizing or optimizing your solution?
Yeah, as I said, first of all, of course, we built the system in a way that was mobile first. So if you look at the younger generation, they live literally on the mobile devices. So the user experience was very different. And even on the web, we had a very different UI and user experience, again, based on the notion that it should be built as a consumer product. But so it was easy and very intuitive to be used. It was social to really make the whole experience very different. But at the same time, we very early on added different core development activities and supported those within our system in a holistic way, because we always believe that learning should serve the purpose of helping people develop their skills and support their career growth. So that's why we tied those together, and our customers have a holistic platform where they can really support L and D and not just L and D. Because in I don't know if it's most, I would even say most likely at almost all situations, learning and development are really disconnected in terms of applications. Sometimes even internally in organizations, those are not really tied together for several reasons. But in our solution, we have tied those in a very nice way. I do remember 6, 7 years ago when we added skills and made skills part of our learning solution. I had an interesting conversation with a top executive of a big HCM company, and he asked me the question when he first saw skills within a learning solution. He asked me the question, why in the world did you add skills within a learning solution? That person coming from a HCM, traditional HCM organization, building software for HCM applications, the skills were usually living within the HRIS system, no matter how they were used or whether they were used at all. But it was the first time where he realized that skills were in a learning solution. My response was, how in the world can learning exist without skills? How do you know what training your people need? How do you know which gap you have to bridge? How do you know what needs every employee has? Because even if we talk about personalization and adaptivity within learning, which is very important, it's a new trend. It can only be achieved if you tie learning with development, because apparently not everyone has the same needs, not everyone has to improve the same skills. And even if we both have the same job, and which means we have to kind of have a high performance on specific skills, the same skills, both of us, it doesn't mean that we need the same training though, because we may have weaknesses in different skills out of the skills that's needed. So that's why we added very early on skills and the rest of the development components in our product, which was very unique. And our customers still leverage that.
And how do you feel about the importance of skills, but also mindset and the kind of creating that culture about mindset and driving the curiosity and the interest to learn, and so sometimes it's even more than skills and competencies, right? How can you utilize your technology to help kind of give you that sense of understanding of what is on the top of minds of your workforce?
I think that's a tough question, and this is why those products are really tough to build.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask 100 payroll experts, how should a payroll application function? Not that it's easy to build one, but most likely almost all payroll experts will respond in a very similar way. If you ask 100 L&D experts, how should an L&D platform be? What should it do? You may be lucky if you get only 100 different responses. And then those are even fluctuating over time. And so if you ask the same people 2 years later, you will get a different response. Sorry, which means every organization is supporting learning and development in a very different way. I think the ultimate driver of keeping people engaged and allowing them to really understand and change the mindset from seasonal and situational training on specific situations to move towards a more continuous learning and development is allowing them to see the bigger picture of the career growth. Because at the end of the day, people really want to see growing within the organization and being part of a business success, which means aligning learning and development goals with the ultimate business strategy and business outcome and performance, expected performance outcome. And career development is actually the ultimate activity where you connect all the dots. Because in order to really support career development, it means this is where I am right now, today. This is where I want to go. And so you have to identify what does it take in order to get there. And this is where really learning and development comes together, because it's not just learning. It's learning, of course, but it has to serve now specific objectives, specific goals. And so you need a clear path. And this is where the rest of the development activities come into the game. Which skills do you need to conquer in order to get there? What goals do you have to really achieve objectively to get there? What are the expected performance outcomes to get there? Coaching comes into the game as part of that career development process. So I think this is really the ultimate activity where you connect all those pieces, where someone can really realize how important it is to connect learning and development. And this is where employees also realize how important it is to have a different mindset and move from a seasonal kind of training where I spend some time because I'm asked to, for compliance purposes or for check the box, to a more continuous learning mindset where I'm constantly improving myself, adapting to a world that's changing rapidly, so that I can really stay at the top.
Right. And we still see that companies struggle with measurement and defining or measuring their objectives early on in their programs. And though we see that systems are trying to do a better job at being able to provide that transparency or that data, but I think where some of the gaps are, I still think companies or learning professionals and HR professionals struggle with kind of defining those goals early on and having a framework in place to help accomplish and to be able to collect the right data and then to also make decisions on the data. You mentioned coaching, and we see a lot of importance around coaching and how it can be helpful in driving different behaviors and changing the mindset or encouraging and kind of being that coach along the way as you are maybe an athlete. You need different coaches for different needs depending on what you're training for. Same in the workplace. And our research shows that only about 22% of companies reported on utilizing coaching tools. And though out of those, nearly 50% said that they were effective. So I think there's still a lot of opportunity for learning professionals to incorporate coaching and also leverage technology to help measure and to help formalize it. What kind of advice can you offer there?
That's a wonderful topic to discuss and a great question. I think coaching, even though very important, most organizations struggle on how to use it, how to introduce it, because at that point they realize that, okay, and what should coaching actually do? How should we help our people, to improve their skills and perform better? And this is when they realize the disconnection between learning and development. In reality, all those years learning and development is indeed kind of disconnected, which means learning is then, it started mostly around compliance and check the box training. And then it started slowly moving to, okay, let's use learning in order to help our people to improve their career. But this is where the struggle started, because that means you have to find answers for a lot of questions, and you have to do a lot of homework. In reality, you need to do sort of a reverse engineering, which means you have to start from your business kind of expected business outcome. You have to start with KPIs. You have to identify clearly KPIs and objectives for every job. What skills are needed for every job? What are the objectives? And then performance, sales, customer satisfaction, all kind of KPIs. And then once you have identified all the KPIs and where you want to be, then you have to find a way to measure, at an individual level, at an organizational level. And once you have done this, you know exactly what the gap is for every individual, for every job, and then at the organizational level. And once you do this, then you have to find ways to improve that situation and bridge the gap. For example, if you want to enhance customer satisfaction, you have to find, I mean, the learning objective has to be improving communication skills. And so most of the times the problem is that you may have specific objectives and goals as an organization, and the whole training process and the content, even the content that you have, and even some development components you have, they're not really tied back. And there's no kind of feedback process where you really try to understand, okay, I have spent 1,000 hours training my people. We have spent so many development activities. Did this move the needle at all? Has anything changed? Tying, your learning objectives to development and to business outcome is a highly important kind of goal. But this is where most organizations realize that this is not an easy task, because you have to go all the way back. And you have to do really reverse engineering, because most of the times it's just done the other way around. You put in place content and training, definitely to improve specific skills or to make sure you stay compliant, but those are not always tied, in a holistic way to where you want to go as a business.
Very good points that you're making, and it's not easy, but it's getting there. I think
Yeah.
the more that the technologies advance, and it's easier for learning professionals to be able to manage them, use them to report, use them to help, really drive learning behaviors and certain outcomes for their business. We're headed in the right direction. And so, and then, these other advantages as far as coaching and performance support and other tools that can really help support you in your job day to day, just, keeps getting better and better. And as we wrap up here, and Lefteris, is there any updates or releases that you want to share coming out soon?
Yes, we're actually working on a new version of our product. For years, we have served learning and development as technologists, but at the same time, having a passion for the domain of learning and development, I think this is very crucial. Technology is just the means. How you use that technology and how you build your products to support a specific community like the L&D community, it means that you have to really understand also the domain. You have to love and have a passion for the domain. And I think this is what differentiates us between, among other things as well. So having, now for about 10 years, having a consecutive growth year over year at high pace and coming close to 3,000 customers, we collected a lot of feedback. And of course, we try to build a very different product to support, the L&D professionals to really unfold the boldest vision they can, because indeed it's difficult for that for those professionals as well, because it's easier said than done. You need technology at the end of the day in order to connect those different pillars, learning, development, and business outcome. In reality, but it was never easy. And so for us, that was the cultivation of all the experience we have, leading us to the decision to really come with significant enhancements in the product. Those are so significant that we even gave it, a new name, Schoox Sigma. And what we're working on is a new product again that will first have a significant overhaul of the user experience and a complete redesign of the UI. We always were at the front of offering a very intuitive, engaging, and easy and elegant user experience, but we want to again be the front runner in that field. At the same time, all those enhancements, innovations we're going to build in and improve the product around, again, at the end of the day, connecting learning with development, so the development of the people can lead to business growth and business success, so that we can really serve those three pillars.
All very exciting stuff. And will you be showcasing that at our conference next year?
Yes, we will.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again for being a sponsor, and I'm excited to see in person what your technology is going to be, the advancements that you're making and your new updates, as I'm sure our community will be as well. And again, congratulations on all your award wins, and thank you for sharing your expertise and experience here and some insights around learning and talent and in coaching and how effective all of those can be with proper technologies and processes in place.
Thank you, Rachel. It was an honor to be on your show, and thanks for the invitation and hosting me.
Thank you, and have a good evening to you, and take care.
Thank you as well. You too. Bye.